A couple of times a year, every January and September, we take a weekend where we recalibrate to what we believe Jesus has uniquely asked this group of people, this body of followers of his, to be engaged in and involved in. And it's not that much different from what he does around the world, though we have our own unique expression of it. So our elders, our staff will often think together about who is our who and what is our why. And then secondarily, like what and how do we do what we do? So you need to know, if you haven't been here and you're not aware of it, our who starts everything off. It's Jesus. He's the Redeemer of the world. He's the lover of our souls. He's the one that came to rescue us. And for those that have said yes, have experienced that rescue. And thank you to him. He left his Spirit for us to encounter him, not just out there, but in here. And he's the one that brings life to us. So he's our who. You know that the truth is, probably in your life, the most influential spiritual formation factor is not what you know, as important as truth is. It really is. But the most influential formation factor will be who loves you. Jesus loves you, and he loves us. And he wants to form us into his nature so that we naturally take on who he is. This is what Paul prayed for one of the churches. I pray, Jesus, that they would be fully formed in you. And so Jesus is our who, our why is right along that line. So we state it this way. We want to help one another here in this room and in our community. We want to help one another increasingly do every moment of life with Jesus. You know, there are some folks that don't think about Jesus at all. Others do periodic moments with him. But we think Jesus intends to live with us and in us in a way that we do every moment. But that's an increasing thing for us. Then here's what happens as we increasingly do the next moment with Jesus. He increasingly forms our thinking into people who naturally and intuitively in the moment think like him, increasingly so. Not instantaneously, but increasingly so. And then here's what happens when that is occurring. We increasingly are mistaken for him in our world. And he's pretty attractive. He's amazing. He's gracious and good and loving and kind. And that's who he wants us to increasingly be. In all of my lifetime, my barely 40 years of age, barely, I've never lived through an era like this. It's unique, it's challenging. Our country is fractured. There's this ongoing pandemic, which becomes endemic and is not going away, and the tension that that's created, the fear, the angst, the anger, all of those things. I have to tell you, I've never lived in an era where I believe hope is more readily seen when it's on display than today. It stands out starkly when hope replaces fear, when love replaces anger, when grace overcomes the tension that's there. Who's the conduit of hope in this world? Jesus has picked you and me to do that, to be that in the world. And we have the potential of standing out starkly against our culture like I've never seen in my life before. That's the power of being mistaken for Jesus in our world, in our day. And so for today, I'm not going to look at the whole vision. I want to look at that part of our vision and mission that we're increasingly mistaken for him. And I want to start here. I was thrilled this week, absolutely delighted to hear that the Eagles are going on their 13th final tour, world tour. Isn't that good news? Yeah. Hotel California Tour 2022. Unfortunately, they don't have a date in the Valley here yet, so if anybody's going to Liverpool and you want to take me with you in June, I'm in. I can do that with you. Why do I say that? Okay, here's why. Because toward the end of Jesus' life, he does like his final global tour, except it's just in Israel. But it's like he comes to the end of his life and he says, okay, one last time, I'm going to travel from the northern part of Israel down to Jerusalem. And as I go, I am going to do this like Eagles World Tour, but my tour is going to be called the Take Notice, Take Interest World Tour. It's fascinating to look at the eyewitness accounts of that final stretch of time of Jesus' life as he heads down to Jerusalem. I want to look at, from the text of Scripture today, 4 examples in quick succession over the course of 3 chapters from Luke's eyewitness account of Jesus' life, of what we learn about this world tour of Jesus, this take notice, take interest idea. It's fascinating to me as he walks that 70-mile stretch from northern Israel, from Galilee, from Capernaum down to Jerusalem, what happens time and time again. So let's start this way. This is how it all starts out. It says, now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. A little bit of geography here. This would be, as I said, about a 70-mile walk, probably 3 days, maybe a little bit more. It would be like walking from here to Prescott up the old Senator Highway. So like it's kind of that kind of walk, going up to Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was much higher than Galilee was. So what happens along the way? Well, early on, he comes across this village, and this is what we read. It says, as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance, of course they did, and I'll explain that, and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on me. The contemporary medical theory of the day as it related to leprosy was that it was a very contagious skin disease that ultimately would cause infection in your extremities. You might lose those extremities. It might cause blood infection, and that could take your life. And so lepers were put in isolation camps outside the city. Do we know about this stuff? Yeah. Masks and so on, and there was no, you get it, right? We kind of can live that. And so there's this group of people, maybe several hundred outside this town, that are in isolation, and Jesus walks by, and here was the rule. If you had leprosy, you were to call out to warn people that you were infectious. You had to call out, unclean, unclean, which that's kind of stigmatizing, isn't it? You bet. Instead, this group says, Lord, have mercy. Like, I'm here. See me. This is what Jesus does. He sees them. He takes notice of them. This wasn't exactly how he was supposed to handle it. He was supposed to skirt around, like 6 feet of distance, right? Go around. But no, he sees them. He notices them. He notices them. He doesn't just go past them. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I have. I'm not proud of it, but I have. Occasionally, you'll drive down a busy street, and you'll come to a busy intersection, and there at the intersection, at the corner or on the median, is somebody with a cardboard placard stating their need and a heart-rending story of how they got to that place of need. And it is always my pattern to stop, middle of traffic, get out, and go and care for them and provide for them and look after them, just like you, right? No. I actually think this sometimes. They're trying to scam me. They're cheating. They probably have lots of money, and they're just doing this to make a little bit more. I'm sorry for that. Like, it's terrible to think that, isn't it? Well, that was kind of the thinking that you approached lepers with. Man, that's like, they're going to die. They're like, we can't, I don't want to get it, or just leave them alone. Jesus notices. But what's he going to do now? Well, this is what he does. When he saw them, he begins to take interest. He says, go show yourself to the priest. The idea here was a priest needed to verify that a healing had happened so that the leper could integrate back into culture. It was a fail-safe for the culture. Jesus has not said anything to them about healing them yet, but he's already done it. Why? Because he noticed. He noticed. And he said, your need is something I can meet. I can do something about this. And without you asking me to do it, I'm going to go do that. And he heals them. And sure enough, as they go, they're cleansed. Now, it's really easy to say this, well, you're Jesus, of course. That's no big deal. You can just speak things into place and just do it, right? No, careful with that. Because we all have the capacity to heal. Maybe not in that way. I think of my friend Ken, who talked to me this last week. He went to Fry's to fill up his car with fuel. And as he's filling it up, he notices a car beside him at another fuel station. And the car's been sitting there for some time, fueling up, and the driver's door is open, and there's a woman inside, and she's not moving. She's not attending to her car. He notices. And he goes around the car, goes to her open door, and says, hey, it's really chilly these mornings, isn't it? To which she says, yeah, it's not as cold as yesterday, though. He says, well, why? He says, well, one of my favorite uncles died last night. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm thinking about it right now. Noticed? Is that healing? He went over and blessed her and took interest in her world. Did he physically bring her uncle back? No. But there's a healing in that. We can all do this. All of us can do this. This is Jesus' first of 4 experiences. The next one is this one. He goes to another town where people were bringing babies to Jesus for him to place his hands on them. When the disciples saw this, okay, they saw too, right? But they went, they're just kids. Kids are to be seen, not heard. And so, let their parents take care of them, Jesus. You're too important. You got too much stuff going on. Just leave them. But Jesus, what? He notices, and he called the children to him. He's turning to all the people that just said, leave him alone. He goes, no, you don't do that. There is nothing more precious on planet Earth than human life. And it doesn't matter whether they're little or big. They're precious. And you don't ever blow them away. You don't ever just write them off. Nope. You take notice, and then you decide, how can I show interest? How can I be interested in them? In this case, it's Jesus. There's no grand healing here. There's just interest. There's just involvement and engagement. That's the second time. It doesn't stop. A little bit further, Jesus walks on, and this is what happens. As he approached Jericho, now he's about 12 miles west of Jerusalem itself. A blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by, and he must have known who he was. So he calls out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And then those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he'll have none of it because he's desperate. David, son of David, have mercy on me. Well, the people around are shouting for him to just be quiet because Jesus couldn't possibly be interested in him. This is what Jesus does. Jesus stopped. He stopped. And then he does this and ordered the man brought to him. When he came near, Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" That is the question of someone who's interested. Combating the voice of people, either internally or externally, that are saying, don't do it. Don't bother. It's not. Do you know that when you and I start noticing people around us and we start taking interest, there are going to be voices that speak to us internally and go, you're an introvert. Don't leave that to the people who love to be with other people. You couldn't possibly meet that need. I mean, that's going to take some time. That might cost some money. That's going to break up your schedule. You're not going to be on time for your appointment. Just let it go. You've got stuff to do. Someone else will take care of it. And these voices will rise. They will, I promise you. And then there will be voices from outside too that'll go, you don't want to hang out with him. He's an anti-vaxxer. Oh, there's a vaxxer over here. That's a mask person. No mask. They're not fit to spend time with because they're from that other political party. You don't want to do that. They're confused on their gender identity. You don't want to hang with them. Those voices will be there, and Jesus will have none of it. As much as the muttering is, just be quiet, dude. Jesus is, nope, I'm stopping, and I'm paying attention, and I'm asking you this question. It is a great question to ask. It's like the question, hey, I noticed, is there anything I can do for you? Do you need anything today? Is there a way I can help you? Can I do that for you? Can I help you with that? It's a great way to introduce. Now, got to warn you, they might take you up on it, and it might cost you something. It might interrupt you, but you'd just be being Jesus. You're a follower of his. I'm a follower of his. We would just be doing what he's invited us to do. And sometimes it changes the destinies of people. It does. Jesus isn't done. He walks a little further into Jericho, and he has another encounter. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was. But because he was short, like stature, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead, climbed a sycamore tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. And I wish we didn't know how the story ended, because if we were culturally savvy in that day, this is how the story would end. He climbed up the sycamore tree, and Jesus walked right by because he was despised. If you were a tax collector, you were outside the realm of sin. You were like worse than that. Not only because you were collecting taxes for the occupying Roman army, but you were a traitor, not just to Israel, but to God himself. And nobody was going to have anything to do with you. In fact, you were doing the nation a favor if you took the person out in some way. So what's Jesus going to do? Shoot. We know, don't we? Because of who he is. This is what he does. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up. He noticed him. Now what's he going to do? And said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Jesus is willing to take the risk of going, hey, that place that's private and your secluded sanctuary, and so could I come and be part of that? That's where we can really have a conversation. I'm not going to publicly humiliate you. I'm not going to embarrass you. I just want to be with you because I noticed what you need, and I can meet that need. So let's go do that. And this is what happens. And all the people saw this, and they began to mutter again, he's gone to be a guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up, and he said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Do you know there's something missing in the conversation here? Jesus has not said anything to him about Zacchaeus. Like, you are jacked up, man. You have messed up your life. And the way that you get back to life is you got to come clean, you got to confess it, you got to get it all straightened out. Then we can talk about it. And then we'll watch like the behavior grow, and then we're going to be, no. Jesus comes in and gives this man somehow a new life, a new heart, a new direction. All of that has to happen, the change, the growth, the maturity, all has to happen. But in this moment, this person's destiny is changed because Jesus stopped, looked up, and said, I'm taking interest in you. Do you know that Jesus has noticed you? He's noticed me. He noticed humanity. And when he did, you know what he did? He took interest. He noticed that you and I had kind of walked away from God, walked away from God. And when you and I decide to do a life independent of God, it actually breaks, like concretely breaks. There's a chasm between a holy God and us. And there's no way to bridge that because he's perfect and holy and right, and we're not, and we can't make ourselves right. We have no way back. Jesus notices that and goes, that cannot happen. I'm getting involved. And he comes to this world. God, in the form of a human being, comes into this world and gets so involved, it takes him all the way to a cross so that his life could be sacrificed to bridge this unbridgeable chasm. And he pays the price for your and my separation and waywardness and sin. That's how involved he gets. Notices the need and says, there is nothing I will not do for my people. This is our tradition. This is what rescued us. This is who we are. And if we say we're followers of him, and let's say that, that means that we're following him. We're not just talking about following him. We're actually learning from him. And we're allowing the Spirit that is his Spirit in us to direct us and guide us. Okay, this is not always easy. It isn't. I discovered again last week, there is a certain blackness in my heart that Jesus still is in the process of working. I'm one of those who increasingly is experiencing Jesus. Elfie and I on New Year's Eve, we're going to go for lunch at a restaurant on Bell Road. So we're heading south on 83rd, and just a block north of Bell, we're in the center lane at a red light stopped, and suddenly there's that unmistakable bang from behind and the lurch forward of my car. But you know when two cars hit each other, there's that sound? Yeah, that's the sound. And so it wasn't really like a really, really hard crash, but enough I knew there was some damage. So I point through my window this way to the guy behind me who hit me. We pull off into the Lincoln Cadillac parking lot. Now you need to know something. That car that I was driving, it's my precious. It is. It's a black, murdered out Charger. It's special to me. Why is it special? Well, for 25 years raising a family with little kids, what did I buy? I bought the family van, the family sedan. That's all I bought all along, right? That's me. So a couple of years ago, when my 13-year-old Honda Accord is at the end of its life and it's going to cost more to fix than what it's worth, I start thinking, well, I got to get a different car. So I start looking for a family sedan. I'm in the habit, right? And I suddenly have this thought, I can get whatever I want. I don't have little rugrats around anymore. I don't have to, my grandkids are their parents' responsibility to travel. I'm gonna get what I want. So I go shopping for this Dodge Charger, and I find sweetness. I find my precious, and I take care of her. Like she matters to me. I clean her, wash her, make sure that she's topped up, like she's special to me. And that's the car he hit. So we pull into this lot. I'm not happy. I'm not. I'm thinking, why? Why could we not be driving Elfie's car? Why? Right? Yeah. So I get out of the car, and by now he's walking toward me. He's like at a pace. He's going, hey, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, it was entirely my fault. My foot slipped off the brake, and my car lurched forward. Dude, it's all my fault. I go, hey, it's okay. We'll just exchange insurance and we'll be good. This stuff happens, right? It does. Inside I'm going, I don't want to be nice. I really don't. Like, no. He's like 25-year-old young man. He's got like the hair happening, and he's got tattoos, and he's got chains around his neck and a muscle shirt. It's cold. Why are you wearing a muscle shirt, right? I instantly categorize him in some way, right? That's the blackness of my heart. So I said, well, just give me your insurance papers. He says, well, actually, I just arrived in town yesterday, and I just bought my insurance yesterday. I don't have the papers with me. And go, yeah, right, I'm paying for this, right? Right? Because there is no insurance. That's the first conclusion here. That makes sense. He says, I've got it at home. He said, okay. Not likely, but okay. Oh, how about your registration for your car? He said, yeah, I don't think I got that. It's at home with the insurance. I went, oh, okay. Well, where are you from? So I'm from Alaska. I said, oh, okay. I'll grab a picture of your license plate. I go around to the back. It's a picture of an Oregon license plate. You see where this is going, right? Like, this is clearly going a certain direction here, right? You go, okay, well, how about I'll take a picture of your driver's license, which is from Oregon. Okay, some things line up a little bit. I go, well, do you have any paperwork in the car that connects this car to you? And he goes, let me check my the glove box. So he rifles through the glove box. He pulls out a piece of paper, and sure enough, there's the car, and there's his address from Oregon. It's a court citation. Yeah, I'm paying for this, right? So we exchange phone numbers, and he says, I promise you, man, dude, I promise I'm going to get that to you this afternoon. Okay. So Elf and I get back in. We head to the restaurant where we're going to have lunch, and all I can think about is, okay, it's just a car. It's just a car. It's just a car. Elfie's telling me some things that are important to her. I am not listening. I'm not hearing her. I'm not. It's just a car. We get to lunch, and now it's time to pray for the food, and I better straighten some things out or this food's not going to get blessed. And so I sort a few things out in my heart and calm down a little bit. It's just a car. Thank you for the food. We enjoy dinner together, lunch together. Out we go. Get to the car, and Cameron is his name, has texted me. And he has, if I can make my phone work here, He has texted me with some information that would be very important for me to know. And that is that he promises to get me the paperwork that afternoon. He says, "Hey, boss, I apologize. I'm kicking myself in my expletive. I have all the information to you soon. Thanks for being so nice." I was really embarrassed. Cameron, I appreciate you reaching out. This stuff happens to all of us. Don't be too hard on yourself. Forgive yourself. I know I have. Thanks for getting me the information. He had told me in the course of the conversation about his dad, which I assumed possibly his dad wasn't alive. He didn't say that for sure. But so I just added this: I think your dad would be proud of you. He writes back. He fought 4 tours of duty in Nam. He'd be staring up at me right now, talking expletive to me. Ha, he was a tiny man. Hey man, do me a favor. Say the accident happened tomorrow. My insurance just processed. Now he's asking me to commit insurance fraud. Thanks, Cameron. Already contacted my insurance company. They know the date that it happened. Maybe I'll just get an estimate on repairs, and maybe it'll be less than what the deductible is. All good, man. Deductible is $1,000. If it's less, I've got a little cash saved. I can just pay for it. Happy New Year, Brad. Happy New Year to you, Cameron. I'll get an estimate and get back to you. And then this in response. Thanks, man. What do you do if it's cool that I ask? Uh-oh. Well, usually when people ask, I say I'm in the people development business. But I'll tell you what I mean by that is that I'm a pastor. Don't hold that against me. He writes back, haha, I was raised Catholic. Respect, man. That's why you're so cool. And then this. I'd love to come and see you do a sermon one day. Pastor driving a murdered out Dodge Charger, ha, you bad blank. He says, I invited him to sit with us when he comes, if he comes. And he says, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I lost my faith a long time ago. Story for another time. But I've always felt the void from that. I'd be interested in hearing your story, I told him. Of course, I'm open about it now, but it definitely had a huge effect on me when it happened at 16, because I was like straight Catholic, old school Catholic. So, do you go by pastor or father? And I had to tell Jesus that I had misread. I had noticed, but I hadn't noticed the need. I had just noticed that he messed my life up. I just noticed that he created a costly problem for me. Till Jesus had enough room in my heart to go, Brad, I love him. I love him. And I let that happen so he would see my love in you. Now, will you love him? Will you take interest in him? Will you care about him more than you care about your stupid car? He didn't say stupid, but I think that's what he was thinking. And so I had to rethink. What does it mean? If I'm a follower of Jesus, what does it mean that I learn from him? That I do what he does because he took notice of me, the least likely on planet Earth to be noticed. And then he took interest and he saved my soul and lets me live with him today and forever. Forever. This is what we can do. We're invited to do. We must do. We have no option. This is our season for hope in this world. We're conduits of that. And the way we're going to do it is by taking notice of the people God's put us around, the people we work with, the people we live next door to. Do you know your neighbor's names? Do you know the names of the people you work with? Do you know their interests? Do you know what their hobbies are? Do you know their story? See, that's taking notice and taking interest. It's really quite simple, but it's fearful and it's intimidating. And Jesus, when you do it, will bless you for it, and he'll change the destiny of people. He will. Do you trust him for that? Could you take that risk? Could you love in Jesus' name? A few days ago, I was watching NBC News. They were interviewing a nurse who had worked 10, 14 straight days in the ICU, taking care of COVID patients. And you can just see the exhaustion in her eyes, and she talks about her fatigue and weariness and emotional drain of being a nurse in that kind of an environment. And the reporter asks her, he says, so that many days straight working, and now it's your day off today, I understand, and you're here again. Why would you do that? And she looks at him kind of incredulously. She says, but I'm a nurse. As if to say, well, I'm a nurse. Who wouldn't do that? All around we have people who need to see Jesus. And this is who you are. You are a follower of Jesus the Christ, who comes, takes notice, and takes interest. We need to do the same for his glory and his fame. Now, Jesus, how will we do this? Will we actually, Jesus, walk across the street and meet our neighbors? Will we introduce ourselves to that employee in the staff room? Will we go to the person in our classroom who sits maybe by themselves and no one else talks to them? And will we actually walk across the classroom and introduce ourselves? Will we greet someone who runs in the treadmill beside us and begin a conversation? Will you give us, Jesus, will you give us eyes? May we be among those who wake up every morning. As Paul instructs us in Colossians 4, give me the opportunity to be a conduit of your message today. Would we be those kinds of people, Jesus, for your fame, for your reputation, and for the destinies of those around us? Amen.